How many tests are there?
Depends on what you want to test. Maybe we should go back first to why would you need to do testing? Why would you need to expose data in FHIR at all? So that's the first thing to think about. So essentially, there are two reasons why you want to have your data exposed in FHIR. One is because of the regulatory requirements. For example, if you're developing something that is called medical software module, be it an EHR or part of an EHR or a model for an EHR or any software that is going to be used by healthcare professionals, that software needs to be certified for use in medical settings. That certification requires that you expose your data in FHIR in order to meet the interoperability rules and ONC rules. So the first reason why you want to expose your data into the FHIR is to satisfy the regulatory requirements and get a certification, very, very broadly speaking. And the other reason why you want to expose the data into FHIR is to be able to communicate and to be able to cooperate with other companies or other software modules or other systems that already understands FHIR. So it's like a common language for healthcare data that everybody understands. And if you want to be a part of that, if you want to ride on that highway, you need to have your data in FHIR. So those are two reasons. And depending on the reason why you're exposing your data in FHIR, that drives the decision on how to test your data. So if you're exposing your data in FHIR because you want to achieve the ONC certification, then that ONC certification will specify all the tests that your implementation needs to pass in order to achieve that certificate. And there is 400 tests, standardized by ONC, that your implementation needs to fulfill, needs to pass, in order to get the certificate just for one type of certification. So there are more than 400 tests for that. On the other hand, if you're exposing your data in FHIR because you want to exchange data and to work with partners that are also FHIR enabled, then the number of tests can be smaller or larger than these 400. Then it depends on your specific goals for FHIR interoperability implementation.
And can you take these tests on repeat, or is there like a limit? What happens if you fail?
So if you want to pass the ONC certification, what you need to do is to expose your system to a set of standard tests that are defined by ONC. And then you run those tests against your implementation. And you run those tests in some sort of controlled environment. And that controlled environment is typically, not typically, by definition, that controlled environment is provided by an authority called the ONC Authorized Testing Lab. So you contact the ONC Authorized Testing Lab and tell them, I want to certify my software. They give you the environment in which you will run the tests against your implementation. And of course, you need to pay for that, for using that environment and for testing your implementation against the ONC tests. If you don't pass those tests, you will need to run them again, meaning that you will need to pay again. And every time that you fail to pass these tests, you will need to create a new testing session and pay another fee for testing your implementation until you pass all the tests. And the fee for running a single testing session can be up to $10,000 in some instances. And that is just for running the tests, those 10K. There are additional fees that you need to pay on top of that for getting the certificate and for doing all sorts of other things. But just for running the tests against your implementation can be $10,000 in some examples. So before you actually engage in that, before you pay somebody $10,000 to run the tests, you want to make sure that you will pass them. And the only way to make sure that you will pass your test is to run the same standard test suite against your implementation within your environment, so that you can test your implementation by yourself to verify that you will pass the tests once you run them on a ONC authorized testing lab. And that's where our FHIR testing suite comes in, because we are able to set up your local testing environment in which you can test your FHIR implementation against the standardized set of tests that you will be challenged by when you apply for certification.